Good morning, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. Grandpa coming to you from the living room in Jacksonville Beach. And I recently found out that this book here, The Little Prince, is your favorite story, Arlo. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means it's your favorite book or if there's a movie about the book, but this is what you dressed up for Halloween recently. You were the little prince, and your dad was some giant animal, and your mom um, looked like she was in a chorus line. But I'm sure these were characters from this book, so maybe we'll get to meet them as we go along. So there's the cover of the book. We're doing this a little different this time. When I was 6 years old, I saw once a splendid picture in a book about the virgin forest called Stories of Life. It represented a boa snake that swallowed a wildcat. This is the copy of the drawing, and here it is. The book said, boa snakes swallow their prey whole without chewing it. Then they can no longer move, and they sleep during the 6 months of their digestion. Wow, that's a long time. Then I thought a lot about the adventures in forest, and on my turn, I managed with a colored pencil to make my first drawing. My drawing number one. It was like this, and there it is. And to me, it looks like a hat. I showed my masterpiece to the grown-ups, and I asked them if my drawing frightened them. They answered, "Why should anyone be frightened by a hat?" My drawing did not represent a hat. It represented a boa snake that digested an elephant. And I think that, yeah, we're going to move this like this. My drawing, um, then I drew the inside of the boa snake so that the grown-ups could understand. They always need explanations. My drawing number two was like this. And here it is, and you can see the same outline that looks like a hat. But here's the elephant inside of the snake. And so the snake's belly goes up and around like that. And that's, you can see the snake's, or the elephant's form inside here. The grown-ups advised me to put aside the drawings of open or closed boa snakes and to become rather interested in geography, history, calculation, and grammar. That is how I gave up, at the age of 6, a magnificent career as a painter. I had been discouraged by the failure on my drawing number one and drawing number two. The grown-ups never understand anything by themselves, and for children, it's tiresome always giving them explanations. So I had to choose another profession, and I learned how to pilot airplanes. I flew around the world, and geography, that's right, helped me a lot. I recognized at the first glance China and Arizona. This is useful if you are lost at night. So I had in my lifetime a lot of contacts with a lot of serious people. I've lived a lot at the house of grown-ups. I saw them very closely. It has not improved my opinion very much. When I met one who seemed a bit lucid means that aware, like I experienced it on my drawing. No, I always kept. I had no idea what that means. I wanted to know if that person had really understood, but the person always answered, "It's a hat." Then I did not talk to that person about boa snakes, neither virgin forests nor stars. I put myself on the same level. I talked about bridge, golf, politics, and neckties, and the grown up was glad to know another rational man. Thus I lived alone, without anyone to talk to indeed, until a crash in the Sahara Desert 6 years ago. Something had broken in my engine, and as I had neither a mechanic nor passengers with me, I prepared to try to do by myself a difficult repair. For me, it was a matter of life or death. I had scarce water to drink for 8 days. The first night, I went to sleep on the sand, 1,000 miles far from any inhabited land. I was much more isolated than a shipwrecked on a raft in the middle of the ocean. So you can imagine my surprise at the sunrise when a funny little voice woke me up. It said, "Please draw a sheep for me." What? Draw a sheep for me. I jumped on my feet as if I had been struck by lightning. I rubbed my eyes. I looked attentively, and I saw a quite extraordinary little fellow who looked at me seriously. This is the best portrait of him that, later, I managed to make of him, and here he is. But my drawing, of course, is much less charming than the model. It is not my fault. I had been discouraged in my career as a painter by the grown-ups at the age of 6, and I did not learn how to draw except closed boa snakes and open boa snakes. I looked at that apparition with wide eyes. I think an apparition is like a ghost. Do not forget that I was 1,000 miles far from any inhabited region. My little fellow did not seem lost, neither dead tired, nor hungry, thirsty, or scared to death. He did not have the appearance of a child lost in the middle of the desert, 1,000 miles from any inhabited region at all. When I was finally able to speak, I told him, "But what are you doing here?" And then he repeated very slowly, as if it was a very serious thing, "Please draw a sheep for me." When a mystery is too impressive, we do not dare to disobey. As absurd as that seemed to me, it's like crazy. As crazy as that seemed to me, 1,000 miles far from all inhabited places and in danger of death, I took out of my pocket a piece of paper and a stylograph. But I remembered that I had studied mainly geography, history, calculation, and grammar, and I tell the little fellow, with a bit of bad mood, that I did not know how to draw. He answered me, "It doesn't matter. Draw a sheep for me." As I had never drawn a sheep, I remade for him one of the only two drawings that I was able. That one of the closed boa snake, and I was stunned to hear the little fellow answer me. No, no, I do not want an elephant and a boa snake. A boa snake is very dangerous, and an elephant is very cumbersome. At home, everything is tiny. I need a sheep. Draw a sheep for me. So I drew it, and here is the drawing that he made of the sheep. He looked carefully, then, no, this one is already very sick. Make another one. And he makes this one. My friend smiled kindly with indulgence. See, it's not a sheep, it's a ram. It has horns. So, and here's the horns up here. So I remade my drawing again, and he made this one. But it was refused as the previous ones. This one is too old. I want a sheep that lives long. Then, with no patience, as I was eager to start disassembling my engine, I scribbled this drawing here. And I threw, this is the box. The sheep you want is inside it. And see, it's got holes so the sheep can breathe. But I was very surprised to see my young judge's face light up. That's quite like I wanted. Do you think this sheep will need a lot of grass? Why? Because at home everything is tiny. That is probably enough. I gave you a little sheep. He tilted his head to the drawing. Not so little. Hey, it fell asleep. And that is how I met the little prince. And there he is, and he's got his flyaway scarf. It took me a long time to understand from where he came. The little prince, who asked me a lot of questions, never seemed to understand mine. The words spoken by chance, little by little, are the ones revealing me everything. Thus, when he saw my plane for the first time, I will not draw my plane. It's a too complicated drawing for me. He asked me, what is that thing there? And I was proud to explain him that I flew. And this is a translation of a book that was written in French and translated into English, and this is kind of a strange translation of the book. The English isn't really good, but the book is. So then he exclaimed, how? Did you fall from the sky? Did you fall from the sky? Yes, I said modestly. Ah, it is funny. And the little prince had a very nice burst of laughter that irritated me a lot. I want my misfortune to be taken seriously. Then he added, then you also come from the sky. What planet are you from? I immediately saw a gleam in the mystery of his presence, and I asked abruptly, so do you come from another planet? But he did not answer me. He nodded softly while watching my plane. It's true that on that you can't come from far away. and he sank into a daydream that lasted long. Then, taking my sheep out of his pocket, he immersed himself in the contemplation of his treasure. You imagine how much I had been intrigued by his half confidence on the other planets. I therefore struggled to learn more. Where are you from, my little fellow? Where is your home? Where do you want to take my sheep to? He replied after the meditative silence, which is good, which the box you gave me. I mean, overnight, it will serve as a house. Of course, and if you are nice, I will also give you a rope to tie it during the day and a picket. The proposal seemed to shock the little prince. Tie it? What a funny idea. But if you do not tie it, it will go anywhere and it will be lost. And my friend had a new burst of laughter. But where do you want it to go? Anywhere, right in front of it. Then the little prince observed severely, it doesn't matter. My home is very small, and with a bit of melancholy, so sadness. With a bit of melancholy, perhaps, he added, right in front, nobody can go far away. Then I had learned a second very important thing, that his home planet was not much larger than a house. It could not surprise me much. I knew that outside of the big planets like Earth, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, which have been given names, there are hundreds of others that are sometimes so small that it is very hard to see them through a telescope. When an astronomer discovers one of them, he gives it a number as a name. He calls it, for example, Asteroid 325. And here's somebody looking at asteroids through a giant telescope. I have serious reasons to believe that the planet where the little prince came from is asteroid B612. This asteroid was seen only once through the telescope in 1909 by a Turkish astronomer, and so that's who this dude is. He's Turkish. He's got this fez hat on with the tassel coming out. Then he made a great demonstration of his discovery at an International Congress of Astronomy. However, nobody believed him because of his costume. The grown-ups are like that, so they think this is a costume, but he's a Turkish astronomer. And in Turkey, they still sometimes dress like that, but mostly it's an interesting country. It's got a lot of Western influences, so they wear clothing similar to our clothing now. Most people, most of the time. Fortunately for the reputation of asteroid B612, a Turkish dictator imposed on his people, on pain of death, to dress like the Europeans. The astronomer remade his demonstration in 1920 in a very elegant garment, and this time everybody accepted his opinion. And I had not read this before doing this, but here he is in the Western garb, and that guy's name was Ataturk. I think it's Abdul Ataturk, was a dictator. He was a very popular dictator, but he decided to take the Turkish people in the western direction instead of the eastern direction in their culture. So he made people dress like Westerners. If I had told you those details on asteroid B612 and gave you its number, it's because of grown ups. Grown ups like digits. Digits are numbers. When you talk to them about a new friend, they never ask you the essential. They never tell you which is the sound of his voice. What are the games that he prefers? Does he collect butterflies? They ask you, how old is he? How many brothers does he have? Which is his weight? How much money does his father make? Only then they oh, I don't know what it said. Then he made a great demonstration of his discovery at an international congress of astronomy. However, nobody believed him because of his costume. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. I thought these pictures looked just like the last ones. So now we're down here. Only then they believe that they know him. If you tell the grown ups, I saw a nice red brick house with geraniums in the windows and doves on the roof, they do not get to imagine this house. It is necessary to tell them, I've seen 100,000 francs house. Then they exclaim, it's so beautiful. Francs are the the money that the French used to have before they joined the European Union and started using the euro. So 100,000 francs house is probably like $500,000 house is what they're talking about. Like, oh, that's nice. So grown-ups do that. They judge things based on how much money they're worth. Then if you tell them the evidence that the little prince existed is that he was charming, he laughed, and wanted a sheep. When you want a sheep, it is the evidence that you exist. They will shrug and treat you as a child, but if you tell them the planet where he came from is asteroid B612, then they will be convinced and will leave you free of their questions. They are like that. It is not their fault. Children must be very indulgent to the grown-ups. So indulgent means you have to put up with their crap. But of course, we who understand life, we make fun of numbers. I would like to start this story like fairy tales. I would like to say, once upon a time, a little prince who lived in a planet not much bigger than a house, not much bigger than him, and who needed a friend. For those who understand life, it would have seemed much more real. Because I do not like people reading my book recklessly, I feel such sorrow to tell those memories. It is already 6 years since my friend went with his sheep. If I am here trying to describe him, it is not to forget him. It is sad to forget a friend. Everyone who has not had a friend. Then I became like the grown-ups who were not interested in digits anymore. So, yet, that's why I thought a color box and pencil box. It is hard to get back to the drawing at my age when you have never made other attempts besides that one of the closed boa and an open boa at the age of 6. Of course, I will try to make portraits the most similar as possible, but I am not absolutely sure that I will succeed. A drawing goes, and the other is not similar anymore. I am a little wrong about the size as well. Here, the little prince is too big. There, he is too small. I also hesitate on the color of his costume. Then, I grope like this and like that as best as possible. Finally, I was wrong about some details more important, but he has to forgive me for that. My friend never gave explanations. Maybe he thought I was similar to him. But unfortunately, I do not know how to see sheep through boxes. Maybe I'm a little like the grown-ups. I must have got older. This is deep. And this is chapter 5 here. This is the Roman numeral 5. It's the letter V. Roman numerals um, are all letters. There's a whole system that you use. 1 is I and V is 5. And we'll see that the next chapter will be VI. So the chapter before this was IV. So that's 5 minus 1. And the one after this will be VI, 5 plus 1. Every day I learned something about the planet, the departure, the trip. It came slowly, random thoughts. It was so that on the third day I knew the drama of the baobabs. This time again, it was thanks to the sheep, because suddenly the little prince asked me, as taken by a serious doubt, "It's true that sheep eat bushes, isn't it?" "Yes, it's true." "Ah, I am happy." I did not understand why it was so important that the sheep eat bushes, but the little prince added, "Therefore, do they also eat baobabs?" I don't know what a baobab is, but I guess we'll find out. I pointed out to the little prince that the baobabs are not bushes, but trees as large as churches, and that even if he took with him a whole herd of elephants, the herd would not overcome a single baobab. The idea of the herd of elephants made the little prince, laugh. They should be one over the other. But he noticed with wisdom, the baobabs, before growing, they start being small. And here's elephants. Here's the little planet he lives on. And so the elephants are stacked. The baobabs, before growing, they start being small. That's right. But why do you want your sheep to eat the little baobabs? He answered me, "Well, see," as if it was evident, and it took me a lot of mental effort to understand only this problem. And indeed, on the planet of the little prince, there was, as in all planets, good plants and weeds. Therefore, good seeds of good plants and bad seeds of weeds. But the seeds are invisible. They sleep in the secret of the ground until one among them is seized by the desire to wake up. Then it stretches and pushes, first timidly towards the sun, a lovely, small, harmless twig. If it is a twig of radish or rosebush, we can let it grow as it wants. But if it is a weed, he must tear the plant immediately, as soon as it is recognized. Now there were terrible seeds on the planet of the little prince. Theirs were the seeds of baobabs. The surface of the planet was infested. But a baobab, if you take too long, you can never get rid of it. It clutters the whole planet. It perforates the planet with its roots. And if the planet is too small, and the baobabs are so numerous, they burst it. Wow, there's a lot going on in this book. It's a matter of discipline, the little prince told me later. When he finished his cleaning in the morning, it was necessary to carefully do the cleaning of the planet. He must effort regularly to extract the baobabs as soon as they are distinguished from the roses, that they look like a lot when they are very young. It's very boring work, but very easy. And here he is. He's digging up these baobab weeds. And that's the truth with weeds. When they first spring up out of the ground, sometimes they look like the things that you want to grow. So you have to keep an eye on them every day. And then as soon as you discern, like, this is a weed, it's a baobab, then you pull it. Because if you let it go too far, it'll take over everything. And one day he advised me to apply myself to achieve a beautiful drawing, to instruct the children at my home. If they travel one day, he told me, it can be useful to them. Sometimes he conveniently postpones his work. However, if it's the baobabs, it is always a disaster. I've known a planet inhabited by a lazy boy. He has overlooked 3 bushes. And here, that must be the 3 bushes there. And upon the instructions of the little prince, I have drawn this planet here. I do not like to take the tone of a moralist. A moralist is somebody who wants to act right. Its morals are your basic beliefs, and your basic belief is to want to act right if you're a moralist. But the danger of the baobabs is so little known, and the risks faced by those who get lost in an asteroid are so considerable that for once I make an exception to my opposition. I say, children, watch out for the baobabs. It's to warn my friends about the danger they were in for a long time, like myself, without knowing that I've worked so hard on this drawing here. The lesson I gave was worth. You might ask, why is not there in this book other drawings as grandiose as the drawings of the baobabs? The answer is simple. I have tried, but I could not achieve. When drew the baobabs, I was animated by the sense of urgency. Yeah, this is a strange translation. Ah, little prince, I have understood slowly, thus your little melancholic life. So melancholy is sadness. You have not had long time for distraction, like the softness of the sunsets. I learned this new detail in the 4th day in the morning when you told me, I like sunsets very much. Let's see a sunset. But it is necessary to wait. Wait, what? Wait until the sun goes down. You got very surprised aspect first, and then you laughed to yourself and you told me, I think I'm always home. Indeed. I wonder what that banging is. 7 in the morning, sun's not even up yet. Somebody's banging. Indeed, when it is noon in the United States, the sun, everybody knows it, sets in France. It would be enough if it was possible to go to France in 1 minute to watch the sunset. Unfortunately, France is far too. But on your so small planet, all you would have to do was moving your chair a few steps, and you would look at the dust every time you wanted. One day I saw the sun set 44 times, and a little later you added, you know, when we are so sad, we love the sunsets. So the day of the 44 times, you were very much sad, but the little prince did not answer. And there's the little prince watching the sunset. And here's chapter 7, VII. The fifth day, always thanks to the sheep, this secret of life of the little prince was revealed to me. He asked me with abruptness, without preamble, as the result of a problem meditated in silence for a long time. So abruptness is quickness, and a preamble is saying some things to lead up to something. So he just gets right to the point. The sheep, if he eats bushes, it also eats flowers. A sheep eats anything it encounters, even the flowers that have thorns. Yes, even flowers that have thorns. So the thorns, what are they for? I didn't know. Then I was so busy trying to unscrew a bolt too tight to my engine. I was very anxious because my breakdown seemed to be very serious, and the water to drink that was running out made me fear the worst. The thorns, what are they for? The little prince never renounced a question once he asked. I was irritated by my bolt, and I answered anything. So he's trying to fix the engine of his plane, and the little prince wants to know about thorns, and he's like, well, I'm just going to tell him anything. The thorns, they are insignificant. It's pure wickedness of the flowers. Oh. But after the silence, he threw me with a kind of grudge. I don't believe you. The flowers are weak. They are naive. And naive is, how do you put it? Like, people who are naive, they don't get it. They're not with it. They reassure themselves as they can. They think they are terrible with their thorns. I answered nothing. I thought to myself, if this bolt still resists, I will blow it up with a hammer. The little prince disturbed my thoughts again. And you believe that flowers, and you see the three dots there? So it means that he was saying more, but he was interrupted. No, please, no, I don't believe anything. I said anything. I am busy with serious things. So this guy's trying to save his life. He's stuck out in the desert with this broke airplane. He's trying to fix it. And this little prince is like, nah, I need to know about thorns. He looked at me stunned. Serious things. He looked at me, my hammer in hand, and the fingers full of sludge. And sludge is like the oil and stuff from the engine that's all over his hands. leaning on an object, the plane, that to him seemed very ugly. You sound like the grown-ups. It made me a bit ashamed, but ruthless, he added. You're confusing. You mix everything. He was really very irritated. He shook the golden hair in the wind. I know a planet where there is a crimson, sir. He has never smelled a flower. I don't know what a crimson is. Crimson. The word crimson is a red. It's a shade of red, very red. He has never seen a star. He has never loved anyone. He has never done anything other than additions. And all day long he repeats, like you, I'm a serious man. I'm a serious man. And it makes him swell with pride. But it's not a man. It's a mushroom. A what? A mushroom. The little prince was now pale with anger. There are millions of years that flowers produce thorns. There are millions of years that sheep eat flowers anyways. And isn't it serious to try to understand why they give themselves so much trouble to make spines that are never useful? Isn't the war among sheep and flowers important? Isn't it serious and more important than the additions of a far red, sir? Of a fat red, sir? So that must be the crimson. And if I know myself a unique flower in the world, which does not exist anywhere else except in my world, and that a little sheep can annihilate suddenly, like that, one morning, without realizing what it did, is not that important? He blushed and then continued. If someone likes a flower that is the only existing between millions and millions of stars, it is enough if he is happy when he looks at them. He said to himself, my flower is there somewhere, but if the sheep eats the flower, it is for him as if suddenly all the stars went out, and it is not important at all. He could not say anything else. He burst suddenly into sobs. Night had fallen. I had dropped my tools. I laughed at my hammer, my bolt, the thirst, and the death. There is on a star, a planet, mine, Earth, a little prince to console. I took him in my arms. I cradled him. I told him, the flower that you like is not in danger. I will draw you a muzzle to your sheep. I will draw you armor to your flower. I did not know what else to say. I felt very awkward. I didn't know how to reach it, where to find it. It's so mysterious. The country of tears. And so here's the sun and the flower on the little planet. So let's pick up here in chapter 8. So you have V, and that's V is 5, and so you have 1, 2, 3 I's. So 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll pick up in chapter 8 next time. Until then, Peace out.